Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, it's silly season, which means it's rank radio season. Choo-choo! All aboard, baby. Aggregation station. We're going to ESPN.com. We're going to The Athletic. The Athletic actually has some good things to say about Charlotte. ESPN, not so much. Then we take a dive into the sicko sewer, boop, and then we see who wore it best. All today. Locked On Hornets. All-time cold open, baby. Run it.
All aboard!
Go.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Choo-choo! All aboard. Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson, the conductor, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Go check him out. Also, go listen to Locked On NBA the last week for Doug on Locked On NBA, so go make that your second listen. Even when he's gone, do it, but especially this week. Make it happen. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And of course, I got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So we often have the rotation station. Now we're going on the aggregation station, baby. So ESPN.com, The Athletic, they both have the Hornets in some rank, articles. Not the alliteration that Rank Radio brings us, but they have some rank articles.
Rank
here.
writing.
Do you want rank writing? Yeah, is that alliteration? If it's not the same letter, but it sounds the same.
I don't know. I'm not an English major, as evidenced by every episode of this podcast.
Rank writing. Yeah. Anyways, do you want the good news or the bad news first, Doug? Tell me.
Let's go good news. I need good news in my life,
okay.
Particularly as it pertains to the Hornets. So let's start positive before I blow a gasket.
All right, David Aldridge knows ball. That's the good news. The legend, the NBA reporter legend, David knows Baldridge of The Athletic. He has a top 10 list of the teams that had the best off seasons this year. And it's the Charlotte Hornets coming in at number 6. Doug, how about that? The Hornets have the 6th best offseason.
Sixth?
Wow. The 6th, that's right. According to David Knows Baldridge. Here's what he writes with the skinny. The Hornets are making sure they don't have to solely depend anymore on Ball. Yeah, they're not. He just played in 105 of 246 games last year. The last 3 seasons. That was okay. So after all of that, they added Collin Sexton, Spencer Dinwiddie to the mix. He says it's a good strategy, and when Ball is on the floor, he should be able to play with either of them or Con Knipple, a top 5 pick. Any of them will be an upgrade to the backcourt, where Green averaged just over 7 points per game and 67 starts the last 2 seasons. He talked about the dip in offensive rating when LaMelo Ball was off of the floor, and he talked about diversifying the attack, which is critical for second-year coach in Charles Lee. I really enjoyed this write-up. Like, David Aldridge, while he's a legend, I just have come to assume the worst with the national NBA writers on how much they truly know about the Hornets. But I really enjoyed that paragraph. I thought he was dead on with a lot of it. I looked at the rankings with some of the teams ahead of the Hornets, Doug. I completely agree with them. Like, no notes. Spurs 5, Grizzlies 4, Denver 3. You have the Hawks coming in at 2, and then the Rockets are number 1 with Kevin Durant. I don't have any problems with that order. I think the Hornets are slotted in the exact right spot. David knows Baldridge. Shout out to the GOAT.
Yeah, I love this. I don't know how many people agree with it, but I love it because I think the Hornets stuck to their strategy, which is to acquire young talent, to not sacrifice draft assets yet until they are in a position to know more about what they have and what they don't have with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. And I think it identifies perfectly what the Hornets are trying to do this season, which is improve the thing that got worse last season, which is the offense. And yes, they did sacrifice defensively, but they got better defensively as the year went on. And so I think they're confident in their head coach and in the character and the commitment of the players that they've brought in, that they can either maintain or maybe even slightly improve the defense while significantly improving the offense because they simply did not have the personnel last season to improve offensively, particularly after Ball went down. But I would say even with a healthy Ball, I don't think that they were going to be anywhere near a top 10 or even a top half offense in the league. And so, yeah, I think all of these improvements were in that mindset. And I think, again, they have a solid strategy here. And he didn't really take this into account, but I think you can look at their future assets and say they have like something like 10 picks over the next 5 off seasons. 10, like, I don't know if they're all first rounders, but they've got 10 of their own picks and other people's picks. It's crazy how many assets they've built up. So they're just in a real good position, short term and long term, I think.
Other people's picks, OPP. Yeah, you know me, Jeff Peterson singing it all the way through the offseason, and I really like what he has to say about the Hornets. Plus, the other thing to note here is, okay, maybe you look at these teams and see what they did, and you realize it really wasn't all that exciting of an offseason, despite Shams Charania going on ESPN and telling us it could be the best offseason of all time, not through the free agent market, but through the trade market. It certainly didn't live up to that hype. I will say, with the Hornets having done what they did, it was really more so on the margins. It's not like they had a lot of money to spend. And I talked about the Hornets going through a bunch of just tiny wins this year where it's like brushing your teeth, it's making your bed. It's just all these little tiny wins to set yourself up for success for the day, for the year, for years to come. That's how I would characterize what Jeff Peterson and company did. And sixth seems like the right spot out of a top 10 list, like to be all the way towards that tip top of the mountain with 30 teams in the NBA. Yeah, man, like really job well done. And it's why people feel like the Hornets are turning a corner.
You know what I think they really did? That the most important thing they did with all of the acquisitions, and I mean, you look at this list of added players: Collin Sexton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Mason Plumlee, Pat Connaughton, Con Knippel, Liam McNeely, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Antonio Reeves, Drew Peterson, KJ Simpson. Well, they didn't really add KJ Simpson. That seems to be a misprint. Anyway, a lot of players. Here's what they did. They created competition. That when you win 19 games, that's a good thing. You want to bring enough players in that when you're going into training camp, there are going to be players fighting for their life, fighting for not only just fighting for roster spots. There will be plenty of players doing that. The Hornets have to cut 3 to get this thing down, right? But you're also going to have, I think, people battling for position, for rotational minutes. And so all of that, it's not only going to benefit those players, but I think it's also just going to bring an attitude that's going to seep into Miles Bridges, into LaMelo Ball, into Brandon Miller, to the guys that are comfortable in their rotation roles. It's just going to bleed through, and hopefully, look, the Hornets are trying to overachieve, and you cannot overachieve unless you have some competitive fire, and they've built that in by adding all of these players. It's great.
Okay, now the bad news. Let's go to ESPN.com, where some of the experts, they gave us a forecast of the 2025-26 season, the predictions for each, the Eastern and Western Conference standings. And if you go to the East, you see the contenders. There are 5 teams in that category. It's Cleveland, New York, Orlando, Atlanta, and Detroit. And then you go to the play-in group. That features 5 teams as well: Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia, Miami, and Indiana. And still haven't heard the Hornets in the top 10. And then it's the bottom 5: Chicago 11, Toronto 12, 13 is where Charlotte shows up, Brooklyn 14, Washington 15. Not a lot of write-ups here specifically about the Hornets, just more so really about the group. And here's the paragraph that has the Hornets mentioned in it. It's 2 teams at a crossroads with the Bulls and the Hornets. Both have talented players who are approaching their primes: Josh Giddey and Kobe White for Chicago, LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller in Charlotte. Some long-term hopeful building blocks with Buzelis, Noah Esenge, Tijan Salan, Con Knippel, and rosters that could wind up fighting either for a play-in spot or for a spot near the top of the lottery. So there's that recognition that the Hornets and the Bulls are the 2 teams here that could climb themselves out of the bottom 5 category. So with that recognition, it makes this a little more palatable. But being 13th, I got to say, as much as I think the Hornets did have a nice offseason, I would probably put them above Toronto at 12 and flip-flop those squads. But other than that, kind of tough to put them above Indiana, even without Tyrese Halliburton. Miami might be a little tough for that to happen as well. Yeah, I don't have a huge problem with this, but still bad news nonetheless.
I think the reason you probably don't put Charlotte above Toronto is the Ingram trade, because look, Toronto had a better record than Charlotte last season. Without the Ingram trade, maybe you make a case for Charlotte to bounce above the Raptors. Ingram obviously has as many health concerns as LaMelo Ball, so it's a 50-50 toss-up for that as well. But I think, talent-wise, you probably do slot them a little bit above Charlotte. This all comes down to people don't know how to project the Charlotte Hornets because of all of the injuries over many seasons. And so when they're doing these rankings, they're just going to go with what they know. And they know that Charlotte has spent a large majority of the past half decade at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. Now they know Brooklyn is worse. Everybody that has eyeballs knows that Brooklyn is worse. They have a good idea that Washington's going to be worse, although I think they're a team that could also sneak into some play-in conversations if a few things breaks right. I think Charlotte is one of those teams too. I think the mistake in this article, in this write-up, is not that they have the Charlotte Hornets 13th. I'm honestly fine with that because I've stated many times on the show that I want everyone to underrate the Charlotte Hornets because that should just provide fuel and fire to everything that's going on there. Underrate us until we're ready to be overrated. So that's fine. The thing that I think they get wrong is pairing the Hornets with the Chicago Bulls, who I think just like philosophically, the way the front offices think, the way they're building their teams right now, could not be any different. Chicago wants to put, by their own admission, by AK their GM's own admission, wants to put together like 8 or 9 really good players or very good players because they think that's going to win a championship. And everybody heard that and went, what, in what league? In the NHL? Like not in the NBA. That is not, no, you still have to have, star power. Yes, you have to have depth, but you have to have star power to win in this league. The Hornets at least have that in LaMelo Ball potentially, in Brandon Miller potentially, more so than I believe in Kobe White or Josh Giddey to be that. I also have a problem with putting Con Knipple in a list of players with Buzelis and Asenge and Salon. Asenge and Salon belong together. Those are definitely long-term projects. I think Con Knipple is less long-term than this list thinks, or Tim Bontemps, who I like, but I think he's less long-term than Tim Bontemps thinks he is. And Buzelis, I think, is much further along and has a potential to get into some, conversations about like most improved potentially next season. So, yeah, I think there's some mispairing here with the Hornets and the Bulls. I would much rather be a fan of the Charlotte Hornets right now than a fan of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah. All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Love you, Tim.
He's everywhere!
We're going from ESPN.com to The Athletic. Now we're going to the Sicko Sewer. I got more bad news for you, to be honest with you. The Sicko Sewer. I don't know why we're renaming it from the Sicko Satchel.
We're not renaming anything. Stay tuned.
I'm just scared for the question because I actually don't know why we're naming it this. So I'm a little scared, but I'm going to be on the journey with everybody else. Second segment coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. The Sicko Sewer. I don't know why you changed the bullet point. What's going on here, Doug?
No, the Sicko Satchel. Join subtext.com/at Locked On Hornets. It's the official home of the Sicko Brigade and the Sicko Satchel. That is where people who are in the Sicko Brigade put their questions. That is the Sicko Satchel. Nothing is changing. A lot of changes on this show, but that is not changing. That will never change. The Sicko Sewer, those are the YouTube comments. That's a whole different ball game.
It is.
That's when we jump into the sewer.
Yeah.
Some good things are in the sewer, but also the Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles are in the sewer. Those are
Flushed
radical.
goldfish maybe down there.
They got to go
I don't
somewhere.
know. That's all I got. Master Splinter. Yeah, he's cool.
That's it. He was he wasn't technically a Ninja Turtle, but he was their teacher, their sensei.
Mm-hmm.
All that to say that we get some YouTube comments that do belong in the sewer sometimes. This one that I have today is not. It's just the Sicko Sewer is where the YouTube comments are, but I liked this comment from @ParentingBeyondScreens, who says, I am really anticipating how and what Tre Mann's impact is on the new Hornets gamble acquiring multiple guards. I know, and we all know, that most of the season's hopes rely on how LaMelo and Brandon Miller's health is, because of the huge trust that the organization have already put onto them. But the addition of those rookie guards and Sexton may be a good enough solution. But I am betting that if Tre Mann's conditioning and health has been resolved through that 1 year rest, I believe the second stringers will be a delight to watch. By the way, thank you for you both. You support the sickness, and I will continue to believe as long as we have this pod.
Thank you, sir. Love the last part of that. Doug, how many games do you think Tre Mann has played for the Charlotte Hornets?
Oh, like 25?
It's more than that. He played 28 for the Hornets in 23
that's pretty
and
close.
24.
I mean, that's close.
Well, it's not total. It's not.
Okay.
He's played 41 total. Okay.
Dang.
He played 28 games for the Hornets in 2023 and 24. He played 13 for the Hornets this past season. He played half a season so far. He's played 41 games total for the Charlotte Hornets.
No, but
It's
everybody
not
was ready.
very
Everybody
much.
was ready to give him like $27 million.
It's 13, but also 27 would have been just fine with me. Yeah, Tre Mann has provided a big impact with the Hornets already, even with him not playing very many games, even with him being hurt. Yet the fans, they love him because of Trey. He looks like the answer. Maybe when you squint a little bit, you could see visions of Allen Iverson in the form of Trey with the baggy shirt and all of it. But even when he was playing at a high level, he was a high-octane, electrifying type of guard. And I still think he can be that. It's just amazing that what we think he can be is only based off a 41-game sample. Like, that's it. And I believe it. I believe it to be true. I think you have what I liked, Doug, is that the 28-game sample was already small enough, and then we already started turning up the volume on what we thought he could be going into this past year, and then he gave us that immediately. The preseason was a ton of hype. Like the offseason beforehand, he had a ton of hype, and then boom, he delivers on it. As soon as he plays the Rockets in the season opener, they win. He goes for 20. There's this impressive 5-6 game stretch that he goes on where he's averaging more than 15 on really efficient shooting, and then he gets hurt. I just wonder, are we going to get the same kind of thing from Tre? Remember at the beginning of last year, he had LaMelo Ball that he was playing with. Brandon Miller was playing at that point. Miles Bridges was on the team as well. Collin Sexton is the biggest difference. And Con Knipple is as well. I should mention Con Knipple. So can Collin Sexton and Con Knipple come in and take enough minutes / take the basketball away enough from Tre to where you don't get that or you don't get anything in the neighborhood of that? I think that's the question that you have from a man in the Sicko Sewer.
No, all good points. I want to go to a few other things before we move on. Forte Britt totally bullseyes me with this comment. Says, Doug, this was on the last episode, the first episode that we did since moving the show to nighttime recordings. Forte Britt says, Doug with the quiet kid is asleep voice, which is, yes.
He really is. He's
yes.
not wrong.
Just down the hall. The baby is just down the hall. I am terrified. I'm going to sort of do a boiled frog situation where I increase the volume slightly and hopefully, I'm terrified of waking the baby. That would be no good for my long-term prospects if that were to happen. So, but don't worry. We're going to get there, folks. It's just an adjustment period.
When we go live after some of these games in the regular season and we get happy, we get a little loosey-goosey because of a victory, I think that's the time I'm going to put my money down on you waking up the baby.
Nah, I'm going to put noise-canceling headphones if that happens. If I know I'm really going to wild out, I'm just going to go walk very, very, very slowly in there and just slip some Beats noise-canceling headphones on her.
I imagine you acting like Adam Sandler when he's watching the hockey game and you have little baby Frankenstein passed out after eating a whole bunch of cereal and not quite yet ready yet for his kangaroo song. Okay.
I'll tell you what, if they make the play-in, she's going to the grandparents. I'm just going to tell you that right now. No, we're not messing with that, or she's staying awake.
Fair enough. Any other comments in the sicko sewer, or are we ready to move on?
Nah, this is a good one too. This is I love this username. At Jennifer Cheeks writes this just 52 minutes ago, commenting on our episode yesterday where we talked about Collin Sexton. Is he a big gamble in terms of how much he wanted the basketball, and he was demonstrative in Utah, clapping, demanding the ball from some of his younger teammates? Is it a gamble bringing him over into this situation where, LaMelo Ball is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Brandon Miller's going to need the ball, So we did that discussion, right? So Jennifer Cheeks replies, Sexton's teammates in Utah were extremely selfish. If no one is going to address the context, then no need to address it. Sexton was the best player on the Jazz, and he constantly got stuck in the corners for the worst players on the team to play extremely selfish. Sexton is extremely unselfish. I watched every Jazz game, and Sexton was far from unselfish.
No, Jazz fans love him, man, and I totally get it. This is what it was a joke, except it wasn't really a joke when I said I pity Jazz fans for having Isaiah Collier dribble the air out of the basketball while a better player in the corner is begging for the basketball. Yeah, I did give a little credence to that, but it does make sense, and there are plenty of problems with the Jazz. This was a team that actually was tanking so blatantly that they got fined in a league where there are plenty of teams tanking. The Hornets, hello, they were just outright tanking at some point. They still weren't tanking so blatantly enough to where they got fined. Utah, they don't have a lot of playmakers to set anybody else up. And it's true. Collin Sexton probably is unselfish. He is unselfish in attitude. That's what Charles Lee discusses. He's trying to drive everybody else to be better. I do think he is a force multiplier in that regard, but maybe not as the best passer in the world. I totally get that that's a limiting ability for him, but I don't know if we should characterize it as selfish rather than I need to get away from these young bucks in Utah and play with some guys that I actually think I can win with and be a part of turning something around. I'm hoping it's the latter, and I do expect it to be the latter with Collin.
He has not shown himself to be anything. I mean, you go back to his college days too. He's not shown himself to be anything except an extreme competitor. And so, yeah, like I imagine that playing in Utah under those circumstances were probably very frustrating. And if you could inject him with truth serum during an interview, he would probably express that about being in Utah and wanting to play in a place that wasn't getting fined $100,000 for intentionally losing. But I do think it is a fair question about not only Collin's adjustment, but we just got done talking about Tre Mann too. Like the biggest challenge that Charles Lee has this season is not can he get this team to play defense. It's can he get all of these pieces to play nice with each other on the offensive end? Can they find some kind of flow? Outside of the extra pace that they want to play with, that they've been trying for years to play with pace and haven't been able to. Can they do that? But outside of that, just in the half quarter, can they get all of these disparate parts that they brought from different locations? Can they get them all to play nice? That's going to be a huge challenge. And I think some guys, including Collin Sexton, are going to have to be open to that adjustment period, but they don't have to be, and they could cause problems early in the season if they're not.
Especially if they're not winning, because if they're winning, then there's not a leg to stand on. If they're losing and they're not getting the basketball, then they're going to feel like, well, maybe if I was a little more involved in the way that I want to, or, hey, coach, have you ever looked at this? That it's the losing, of course, that brings out all the issues.
It's the losing, but it's also the contract. I mean, he's going to want to put his best performance forward for his future. And he scored, in the limited action in the games he played for Utah, he scored above 18 points per game. If that were to suddenly get cut to 15 to 14 to 13? Like, what's the line at which? What are the touches? What are the points per game line? What are the offensive contribution line that he goes, wait a minute, I'm not in a. I got to get another contract. I'm not in the best position to do that.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Thank you, Jennifer Cheeks, and I'm sorry you had to watch all of those Utah Jazz games. My God.
Bees everywhere!
It's so much better in Hornets land. We've experienced so much success over here. It's all candy.
No, I
land.
speak from a place of knowing. I don't say that was not me punching down. That was me high-fiving.
No,
I know.
Yeah, and that was me being sarcastic. Who wore it best? Number 4 jersey coming up next. Final segment. LOH. All right, before we get into who wore it best, I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen, and Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer some questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started, and everyone who completes, you can compete if you want to, but who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and you can also find the link in the show notes. Who wore it best? We are on a quest to finish who wore it best. I think it's a little dicey, but we've done a nice job this week. We've got through 5 yesterday. Eldon Campbell wore the number 5 jersey best. We're at number 4 today. Doug, who are the players that donned the 4 jersey?
We've got 11 players that wore the number 4 jersey. I'm surprised. I feel like as we get down, well, honestly, less players wore number 3. Only 9 players wore the number 3. That's even more surprising. But as we get down to some of these single-digit numbers, you expect more than that to have worn the jersey. But number 4.
I think what happens probably is like some players are pretty good, and then the players that are pretty good keep the jersey for a while, and they just
not the
hold
number
on
4.
to it.
let me get to this list. That's not what happened with number 4.
We got one. You're right, though. You're right.
All right, number 4. In 1991, Scott Hafner. In 1995-96, it was Darren Hancock. In 1998, 2002, David Wesley. 2005 to 2006, the first Bobcat to wear the number 4 was Kareem Rush. 2008 to 2009 was Jared Dudley. Derek Brown in 2010-2012. Jeff Adrian in 2013 to 2014. Marcus Page in 2018. Devonte Graham from 2019 to 2021. Isaiah Thomas from in 2022. And Nick Richards most recently from 23 to 25.
Okay, this is a landslide. It's David Wesley over everybody that you just mentioned, and I guess Devonte Graham is who wore it second best, with really his biggest claim to fame being Luka Doncic saying Devonte Graham should have won NBA's Most Improved Player, and that's about it. Got us a first-round pick in return and had some shots.
That we wasted.
Yeah, no, we did.
Jesus.
We did eventually waste it, but at least Devonte got us the first-rounder to waste, and really was a pretty impressive success story after a while. We all have fun memories of what Devonte did, specifically that second year in the league with him being in the running for MIP, but David Wesley's the guy. David Wesley wore it best, being a part of all those teams that were among the best Charlotte Hornets teams in franchise history. Mentioned a lot of the stuff with Eldon Campbell yesterday, but David Wesley started every single one of those games for all of the most important early 2000s Hornets teams. Started 50 in 1998-99, the lockout season. 82 games. Started all 82 games in back-to-back seasons, 99-2000, 2000-2001, and then started 63 of the 67 games in 2001 and 2002. He averaged over 13 points per game every single season, shot pretty well from 3, about 35, 36% really every year. David Wesley is the guy who wore it best. It's not close.
This is thematically perfect for what we just talked about, because David Wesley, for a large portion of his basketball career, played a lead guard role. And then when he came over to the Hornets, it looked like he was going to continue to do that. And then they got lucky and jumped up into the top 3, and they drafted Baron Davis. So then Baron Davis took over that role, and David Wesley could have, kicked and screamed and scratched and clawed and tried to keep that position. Instead, he transitioned into a really nice two guard. I think David Wesley obviously gets this running away. I will say a couple of things about Devonte Graham. He did represent, for me, the idea that the Hornets as an organization had transitioned from the era of selling and moving every second round pick possible to saying, hey, maybe there is some value in acquiring these players in the late first round or early second round, a trend that we would see continue through Mitch Kupchak's entire tenure and see still continue as the Hornets made both of their early second round picks in this past draft and acquired a late first round pick for Lee McNeely. So they're continuing to value that thing. And that's going to be great too, because look, if you're going to invest money, and OKC is about to find this out, like in the new CBA and the new second apron world, if you're going to invest money, big time money into multiple players, so LaMelo, Brandon in the future, right? Maybe Con Knipple. If you're going to do that, you've got to find value in the late first round, early second round, players that you can depend on, that you can give smaller dollar amounts, smaller locked in dollar amounts. Devonte Graham to me represents that. Some huge point totals, some amazing 3-point game tying shots, game winning. I mean, he just had so many moments, probably more moments, I think, if you just stacked them all up, probably had more fun fan moments than David Wesley had, but David Wesley had just the overall production and on a winning basketball team than Devonte Graham did. Also shout out Nick Richards too. I mean, he's obviously was not going to win this, but was a serviceable backup in a time in which the center position was very much in flux. Certainly had his flaws, but I thought did a really good job and a good development project for the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Final thoughts on Devonte for me. Like you saw in that 2018-19 season, was it the Avenger squad that actually kind of salvaged the back half of that Hornets season, where they were trying to tank by playing Dwayne Bacon so many games and Devonte Graham and all these young guns, and all they did was they kept winning games and they weren't supposed to. And then so they actually scratched and clawed themselves back into some semblance of a playoff race to where eventually they wouldn't get in. But Devonte Graham was a part of that group, and then comes back, starts a whole bunch of games, wasn't supposed to start. It actually started 53 of 63, but that's because he didn't start at the beginning of the year, and then everybody was clamoring for it, got it. That was the MIP year, and had all the 3-point shots that you just mentioned. Like it was a fun start for him.
He averaged 18 and 7. How did he not? He only got 2 first place votes in MIP, only 50 points total. Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, Bam Adebayo, and Brandon Ingram won the award. Man, I guess the win shares, like if you look at some of the advanced numbers, because again, he played on a, this is what we keep saying.
Well,
if you want to win more games, you got to have people in awards conversations, but also it works sort of in the reverse too. Like if you want guys to get into these awards conversations, you have to win as a team too, because they're not going to value you if you don't.
Yeah, just the Devonte Graham start. How about averaging like 20 points per game, averaging 18 in the first 10 games off of the bench, and just couldn't get into the starting lineup until 10 games in, and then really starts to take off. Just a fun start for him. The problem for him, just real quick, this became the Devonte Graham segment when David Wesley's like, "Hey, give me my shine." Like David Wesley, so clearing away the better player with the number 4 jersey. But the Devonte Graham story is an interesting one. The thing about him is, man, I mean, just pretty abysmal inside the 3-point arc. Just some truly, and I don't mean to be mean, but I mean like some of the worst 2-point percentage numbers that I've ever seen for the course of a career and a full season. I'm talking about under 40% from 2-point range. Like you just can't be that poor and not be a dead-eye, lights-out 3-point shooter. In fact, you could be 38% from 2 and shoot 37% from 3. and still might not cut it. And eventually that's what happened. Gets traded and I didn't play a game in the league last year, Doug. Not one single game. Played every single game in the G League, and now he's playing in Europe as of 2 weeks ago. So had some fun with Devonte, but David Wesley. We had a lot of fun with those teams where he was a huge part of them. Okay, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Check out Doug this week on Locked On NBA. And always check out his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
I'm going to go scream at my baby that David Wesley wore best.